Hi everyone, and welcome to The Racist War. We're on episode 195. Finian and Knowlesy with you on this kind of warmish Perth evening. How's it going, Knowlesy? How's work?
I'm hot. My balls are sticking to my legs.
Yeah, it's not good for what summer is going to be.
Dude,
we're in for a stinker.
It's going to be fucking hot. It's going to be hot. It's going to be beach time. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be day drinking on the beach for Christmas.
Well, that sounds good. I always like the sound of that. Alright, well look. Here we are after a week of silence where you've had some anonymous Indigenous activists put their name to a public statement basically saying Australia bad, Australia racist. But, like us, you're probably a bit voiced out, so we will get to that, but we'll get to that a little later. Yeah, we thought we'd instead, talk about Israel and Gaza instead. Probably the second biggest story in terms of Australian politics and how our country actually relates to the conflict over there.
We do need to get Syria girl back on sometime because she has been she's been fucking she's been slapping Jews around, but Jews have also just been fucking dogpiling her.
Oh yeah, I mean, because she does it well. I remember I saw a debate between her and Halsey. I think it was the Kill Stream. And she fucking just handed his ass to him, man. She absolutely destroyed him. So, yeah, it would be good. I know Rand is trying to get a hold of her. So, I don't know. Use the contacts that I gave. Because we did speak to her a few years ago. I don't know if she'd remember us, but scratch it.
Drive around a certain suburb with a van and just see if we can just pick her up.
Well, anyway.
We should probably ask Massage. They're probably already trying to do that already.
Oh, man, I've no doubt she's been spied on and stuff. There was concerns over her because, she might have finished it now, but I know she was a PhD in chemistry at UWA. And apparently, they were accusing her of, researching atomic weapons or something. Some shit like that. It was something to do with WMD. And they linked that with her studies in chemistry. Anyway, so how are we going over there? It looks like the Palestinian death toll is nearing 6,000 people.
ABC reported 6,000 this afternoon from the Health Authority.
I'm going from Al Jazeera at the moment. That is accurate up to 1 hour ago. I don't know where ABC gets their sources from, but anyway. But yeah, just remember, and yes, we do need to keep this in mind, no matter what all these Israeli diplomats tell us. The death toll in Israel is really only from the initial attack from Hamas, which is around 1,400 people. So... I think there is, when you talk about the concept of proportionality, okay, sometimes it's not always good to be completely mathematical with it. But surely when your civilian death toll is more than 4,000 over the other death toll, then, and, I've got a lot of, I'm skeptical as to what the death toll actually was in Israel. When you've got Ben Shapiro putting out AI-generated war porn, essentially.
Oh, dude.
Again, they're always telling us to be skeptical of what Hamas is telling us in terms of the Palestinian death toll. But I know you can't ever think that about Israel. And the fact that, I remember Rand pointed out that people tried to, fact-check the fact that image was AI-generated. And one of the... sources was Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, no, it's not fake because the source is Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, and then another source was the New York Times, and I forget what the other one was, but all three were Jewish sources. All three.
Circular referencing. Where have we heard that before? Like Jewish academics giving credence to their bullshit theories by circular referencing.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so look, in terms of Australian involvement, I know that like one of the first victims was said to be some Australian Israeli woman. There are a number of students apparently unaccounted for in Gaza. That is, those who have Australian citizenship. I'm still not really willing to call them Australian, but anyway, I have no doubt that the amount of Palestinians with Australian citizenship is going to outnumber the Israelis with Australian citizenship. I have no doubt about that.
Due to the actions of Israeli NGOs?
Yeah. Now, there have been a number of repatriation flights. Many of them have just been just normal commercial flights, though, just getting people out of there as per normal. But we have had a flight carrying 222 passengers into Sydney that happened the other day, and Virgin and Qantas are still getting more people back home. Although I think the bulk of the people who want to evacuate, or at least, are capable of evacuating to Australia, have done so.
At least on the Israeli side. If you're a Palestinian, if you try to evacuate, they're just going to bomb where you try and leave.
Right. Well, yeah, like I said, some of the reports I read were a number of students are stranded in Gaza. I mean, remember, Gaza shares a border with two countries, Israel and Egypt. Both, and obviously you wouldn't want to cross into Israel, and Egypt has closed its border. So, they're very much being pushed into the sea, which they like to accuse Hamas of wanting to do to the Jews. And they get
exactly pissy and shitty and cry their fucking little crocodile tears over rhetoric, and then they actually go and fucking do it to the other people. Very much a cry out as they strike you type deal.
It took about a week for them to let aid envoys through as well. They kept going on about how those supplies were going to reach Hamas eventually, and that's just their excuse for everything. So, I mean, even the, what was it? The hospital bombing that killed, what was it, nearly 500 people?
Yep, now completely confirmed by several neutral sources that actually, that rocket came from Israeli territory. They don't even fucking focused on, rockets being fired and the other thing.
Israeli intelligence, I know this because I watched this guy, I forget his name, but he's a British Jewish army reservist. He's claiming that it was Palestinian Jihad. That other group.
Yeah, Islamic Jihad.
Oh, Islamic Jihad. Palestinian Islamic Jihad, yeah.
Yep.
And they're saying that they have... sorry. Frog in my throat. They're saying that they have, all this evidence that the rocket clearly came from within Gaza. And they said that it was fired with a number of other rockets that were designed to hit Israel. And then one of them went off course, and that's the one that hit the hospital. So that's what they're claiming. But, it was a bit... it was dubious just at the beginning, the fact that they initially blamed it on Hamas. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, it's actually Islamic Jihad. Okay. Why so quickly to have said this? It sounds like you are making this stuff up on the fly. And I have no doubt they are. So look, obviously we have had travel warnings for Israel and the Palestinian territories. But that travel warning has now been extended to Lebanon. So Smart Traveller has issued advice saying do not travel to Lebanon, anywhere there, because, well, guess what? Israel is now bombing them. Just about any time you get Israel involved in a large-scale conflict with the Palestinians, they seem to either bomb Lebanon or Syria, one of the two. In this case, because they keep accusing Hezbollah of cooperating with the Iranians to help out Hamas, they have been bombing parts of Lebanon, trying to take out supposed terrorist cells. So I have no doubt we've probably got even more Australians in Lebanon, more Australian citizens, that is, from Western Sydney and that. So as to how many we've got there, I'm not sure, but it would definitely have to be war.
Yeah, okay, quite a bit. Again, if you're selecting for the most vast ethnic Arab population we have, it is going to be the Lebanese through and through, and by a good fucking margin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, let's go to the response that apparently is so divided here in Australia. So, you've had 2 Labor MPs, both of whom are Muslim. One of which is a white Muslim, though. I mean, and that's Ed Husic. So, Ed Husic and Anne Ali have both said that they certainly feel that things are not proportionate. They haven't used these words, but, it's essentially what they're saying. And they're saying that the people of Gaza are being collectively punished for the crimes of Hamas. They're not daring to say, actually, to question the
I'd go a bit
Israeli
death
toll. No, they won't go further than that. I'm sure they probably would behind closed doors. Especially in the case of Anne Ali, who's like a real Muslim. Like, Ed Husic, well, he was sworn in on the Quran, I know that. But, Bosnians follow kind of a very secularized cultural version of Islam, I think. Now, that, of course, is just appalling to the likes of Andrew Bolt, who still isn't learning that Jews are not his friend. And no matter how much you say, love me, Jew, they're not going to do it. They're going to continue using you as a useful idiot. But yeah, the mainstream right, Sky News, The Australian, even Quadrant, I thought Quadrant might have more sense than this, are all going after Labor over this and calling it anti-Semitism and everything. And, look, I've said this before, but I disagree with Mike Enoch when he says that anti-Zionism or anti-Israel rhetoric is necessarily anti-Semitic. I really do not agree with that at all. And the main reason I disagree with that is because, all right, what, you're going to tell me that Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite? You're going to tell me that Ed Husic is an anti-Semite? Okay, there's a chance he is. I don't know. He's said to be good friends with Josh Frydenberg. Josh Frydenberg and Ed Husic had like this kind of public chummy relationship. But I think the purpose of that was basically just this bipartisan commitment to Australian multiculturalism and saying, hey,
that was
look,
a means to an end, not something genuine.
Yeah, it was like, look, here's a Muslim and here's a Jew and they're friends. See, in Australia, multiculturalism works. It doesn't clash. Well, how's that going for you now? Okay. Considering that, conflicts.
What were they chanting
nature,
at the Sydney Opera House again?
Yeah, they were chanting a certain something over there. Actually, we've got Josh Frydenberg's response to that.
Kvetching infinitely?
Yeah. And so they're also saying things now that, like, the article on Quadrant is, I can't remember exactly, but it's called something along the lines of anti-Semitism gets a police escort. And they're saying that because of the fact that, that guy got arrested for bringing an Israeli flag to the pro-Palestinian march.
No.
No.
The
reason why, and that guy was never charged, by the way. They just let him off. The reason why they arrested him was to get him the fuck out of there. Those Arabs would have ripped him apart.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh,
that was for his own good.
No, that was like... There's instances of veterans of 1,000 protests we are. If you fucking show up to a genuinely dangerous situation, and the police haven't been either told by the scenes to, hey, let them rough them the fuck up, say, like, you're a relatively protected political opinion, they will just get you the fuck out of there. They are now your fucking mandatory taxi service. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, with the roles reversed. It absolutely would.
Oh, yeah.
Jews would gladly rip an Arab apart as well for bringing a Palestinian flag to a pro-Israel rally.
But they're
no
not
doubt about
kosher.
It. But, yeah, well, look, what we need to learn from all of this is that multiculturalism, again, is proving to be an absolute failure. It doesn't matter if you simply bring those ethnic groups to another country where they celebrate diversity and see it as a strength. If you think that is some kind of magic potion to extinguish those ethnic rivalries, I don't know what the hell to tell you.
Fuck no.
I mean, has it worked for the Sikhs and the Hindus and the Muslims over here when it comes to intra-Indian violence?
Has it worked with the Scottish and their natural enemy, the Scottish?
Yeah, no. I mean, no. Oh, man, that some dickhead like David Marr will go like, I remember a time where Catholics and Protestants didn't get along in Australia. Are you fucking kidding me? Did they go around and hold like these rallies, like chanting to gas each other? No, like you can't compare the Catholic and Protestant divide to this. It is completely uncomparable. But that's what I actually had next was Josh Frydenberg's response to those rallies, mainly in Sydney. Yeah, so the one at Sydney Opera House, he called it an abomination.
You're an abomination.
He said he never believed he would feel as his grandparents did amid the rising tide of Jewish hatred that heralded the Holocaust, nor as his parents did amid the threat to Israel posed by the Yom Kippur War in 1973, but I do now. I stand before you anguished and anxious about the future. So
legally, he should be deported. By the way, his parents lied on papers. Yeah, they lied on their immigration papers.
He's a dual Hungarian citizen.
Yeah,
but no, the court won't dare fine him of that. That would just be too dangerous for them. But so here he is evoking European conflicts, European anti-Semitism, and saying that he believed it to be non-existent in Australia. But now he does see it. Now he believes it does exist here. So, isn't that Frydenberg actually, maybe sort of saying, that thing that me and Ed Husick had going on publicly, it's not really real. We still have those same rivalries. Those tensions are still there, and we shouldn't be under any illusion that the magic dirt in Australia has extinguished those tensions. You've got to be kidding yourself. So he said, when fears over safety see Jewish students afraid to attend lectures on campus, Jewish parents feel the need to keep their children home from school, and Jewish schools advise students not to wear their uniforms that makes them identifiable outside school grounds, we know we have a problem. So there we go. Now, Frydenberg was the one probably most responsible for the fact that they have compulsory Holocaust education in Victoria now. It was implemented by the Andrews government, of course, because that is a state government remit. But it came immediately after Josh Frydenberg called for it. And again, in that case, he was referring to Muslim on Jewish. Should I say hate crime? I don't know. But, there was crime that one with that Muslim kid that, got that Jew to kiss his shoes. That was the most egregious one, I think, for them. Okay, so what about the Greens? So I'm reading this story from The Australian because they're loving this at the moment. They were sort of in this public debate over who bombed the hospital, as we were just discussing before. And the Greens were basically saying, it was the Israelis. Now, the Australian then goes and claims that intelligence that has been collected from both Israel and America and provided to Australia and cited by the Australian newspaper apparently confirms that Islamic Jihad, or at least some form of Palestinian entity, was the one responsible for the rocket. And so if you read the implication here in this article, to summarize it, it's basically saying that the Greens are ignoring the facts of this story because of the fact that they just have an anti-Israel bias on the whole. Well, yeah, as Nolsey, as you were just saying before, how can we actually trust that kind of intelligence?
And we can't.
No. So, anyway, Adam Bandt was asked on Thursday if he believed Israel was responsible and whether the Greens had been wrong to take the claims of a terrorist organization at face value. Right, that is Hamas. And so Adam Bandt said the Israeli military changed its story. It initially said it was Hamas, and then it said it was Islamic Jihad. Well, that's true, but he didn't really answer the question there. So the Greens later claimed that it was unclear who was responsible for the blast. So Bandt went on to say, it's very difficult in this environment to get independent verification. We back the calls for an international investigation into the bombing of the hospital. So, yeah, last we've checked here, Adam Bandt is basically agnostic on this question. So he's been sort of beaten into the corner on this by the conservative media, saying that he's jumping to conclusions.
Well, also, I think Adam Bandt is smart enough and has been in this game long enough to realize when he's about to cross the threshold and be completely and utterly shit-canned.
You're right. Oh, and sorry, I should also add that apparently this Israeli intelligence has been accepted by Australian authorities as well. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
As if they have a choice. If we get fucking handed intelligence that comes from both Israel and America, what the fuck do you think the Australian authorities are going to say? That it's
yes,
dodgy?
Master. How far do I stick this up my ass?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're going to say. Okay. All right. So still on the intelligence surrounding this, Mike Burgess was at Senate estimates hearing the other day. He was asked about the issue of Israeli intelligence. Now, this isn't really to do with the rocket attack. It's more to do with the lacking intelligence that Israel had prior to the attack. Why did they not think that this was going to happen, that they were going to launch this attack a little over a week ago now? And he's assuring us that Israeli intelligence is still top-notch. And the Australian makes the point here that apparently Mossad in particular is an intelligence service that is revered around the world. I don't know about that. I mean,
Mossad is a fucking assassination service that is feared around the world.
I was going to say,
they're not intelligence. They are there to kill people.
At manufacturing fake passports and then sending Israeli agents
Australian PMs
undercover. Yeah, and I mean, or to kill Iranian nuclear scientists or something like that. And yeah, they use Australian passports as well, which contributed to the fall of Kevin Rudd. So yeah, I would say, well, look, yeah, if they weren't so preoccupied with these fucking hitmen attacks that they do the world over, then, maybe they would have had their eye on the ball a little more. Now, what I hate about this, though, is that he was not asked, well, therefore, can we, at least be skeptical when Israeli intelligence tells us that it was Islamic Jihad in Palestine who hit the hospital? If they got this wrong, and we don't even have to attach a nefarious agenda to their motivation here. We can just simply go from the fact that they have recently shown a lack of judgment and a lack of solid intelligence that resulted in an attack on them that made them lose around, 1,000 lives or whatever. Can't we at least say then that the intelligence they're providing us now could be inaccurate? But no, Mike Burgess, they didn't ask that question, but also Mike Burgess is actually just saying, no, their intelligence is essentially not to be questioned. And it is reliable.
Yeah, fucking great. Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, no, actually, no, just fuck it. I can't even say that.
All right, so look, just to further show how the multicultural project is falling apart here, in South Australia, you have what they refer to as a multicultural advocate. He's also a Muslim community leader, Ahmed Zrika, or Zrika, I'm not sure what that is. He was on the board of 15 members. It was called the Multicultural Commission. So it's basically the lead multicultural bureaucracy in South Australia. And, all 15 members basically just kind of come from different ethnic and religious groups. He was obviously from the Muslim community. And he's saying that the South Australian government's response and the Premier, Peter Sloppy Seconds Malinauskas, have been too pro-Israel. And, the amazing thing here is that, as we were discussing before, you've got Andrew Bolt, the Australian even quadrant, going after Labor and the Greens here for apparently being pro-Palestinian. But still on the other side, the people who genuinely do support the Palestinian struggle are the ones saying, "Are you kidding me?" and quitting board, saying, "No, Labor is absolutely on Israel's side," and they are. You've got your two token Muslims in the Labor Party who simply just said that the Palestinians in Gaza don't deserve collective punishment. I mean, you can't get a much more moderate remark than that. And I mean, how is that controversial to say that they shouldn't, that a group of people should not be collectively punished? You don't pay for the sins of other people. How is that an extremist thing to say?
But they have to be punished. They just have to be punished.
Yeah, well, and I mean, now the Labor Party, I guess, sort of has to be collectively punished by the Australian Jewish lobby because they don't like what they're saying. And they're doing this everywhere. I mean, the UN Secretary General, I can't remember his name, he's some Spanish guy. He had the audacity to say that the Hamas attack did not occur in a vacuum. Well, obviously it fucking didn't. No attack does. So, yeah, there you go.
Such a terrible thing to say.
Right there. Yeah. And I mean, and that again is why I don't think attacking, Israeli policies is necessarily anti-Semitic. You could say it's illogical because you should link the behavior of Jews with the behavior of Israel because it's run by Jews. Of course.
It is the Jewish state.
Yeah. But there's a hell of a lot of lefties out there, like Jeremy Corbyn, who simply don't do that. They do actually draw that distinction. They may be incorrect in drawing that distinction. I would certainly argue that they are. But that doesn't mean they're anti-Jewish. Unfortunately, a lot of those lefties actually associate with a lot of very prominent elite Jews. I mean, wouldn't you have to call, Noam Chomsky a self-hating Jew? Because he's quite critical of Israel as well.
He makes excuses. He just says "Oh, well, actually, it's America that's the big bad here. Israel's just a innocent party."
Yeah, no, look, again, the analysis may be incorrect, or maybe inconsistent, or maybe even contradictory, but that doesn't mean he hates Jews. Okay, no. He's a fucking linguist who speaks Hebrew. I just cannot, for the life of me, call Noam Chomsky a self-hating Jew. Okay, so... right, well, just to show, I guess, that divide, this supposed divide, this is interesting. So in New South Wales, you have a group called the Parliamentary Friends of Palestine. As the name suggests, that is a state parliamentary body in New South Wales. And it has 22 sitting members of the New South Wales State Parliament. And believe it or not, it includes 16 Labor MPs and 1 Liberal MP. So how about that? You actually have a coalition member who's a member of Friends of Palestine in New South Wales. So this is urging the federal government, our government, to call upon actors to comply with international humanitarian law, which is obviously saying, doing things like cutting off electricity, food, water to over 1 million people, and then having them surrounded by the ocean and 2 closed borders, and then refusing to let aid envoys in for over a week. That's not in accordance with humanitarian and international law. Oh, really? No shit. And yes, that's what Israel has been doing. Up until recently, they only just let in those aid envoys, which are obviously nowhere near enough considering the humanitarian crisis that has existed there. So, yeah, even the libs now, even members of the Liberal Party are saying, hey, this is perhaps going a little bit too far here. So look, the protests have continued. As far as I know, they're pretty much just set to continue every weekend now. Like pretty much every Saturday, it seems to be the day that they've been doing most of them. And I guess there's a little bit of competition. You've even got some Jews marching with the Palestinians. And I guess I've got to give them credit for doing that.
There's a weird sect. They're actually like, some of them are hyper religious. Some of them are still like follow that religion, but they're secular. There's a weird sect that believes that Israel isn't legitimate because there's some prophecies that need to come true first.
The Haredi Jews.
Yeah.
So they're like ultra orthodox. They're like
no, the prophecies need to come true before Israel. Like they're not fucking like opposed to the state of Israel or a Jewish state. Yeah.
Yeah, the actual like Messiah of the Jewish people needs to return to Earth, and of course they don't accept that was Jesus.
No, it wasn't Mishair, which was like one they were calling the Messiah.
And the temple has to be rebuilt as well.
Yeah.
So until you fulfill those conditions of the Torah, any Jewish state is illegitimate. And so, what's his name? Rabbi David Weiss, I think, might be the guy. If you watch the movie Religulous by Bill Maher, which, as the name suggests, is an anti-religion movie, he takes on Islam, and he also takes on this weird sect of Judaism. Now, I mean, like, isn't that funny? So when he does take on Judaism in the movie, what he's actually doing is taking on what he effectively sees as an anti-Semitic Jewish religion, right?
Yeah.
Or sect of Judaism. I know that sounds very contradictory, but in a way, that's actually what it is, because
it's a sect that goes against It's a sect that goes against the interests of the Jewish race for this given point in time, because there's been some weird voodoo shit that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, you've just got the secular types, that other group you mentioned. That would be kind of like Norman Finkelstein, I guess, or maybe even Noam Chomsky.
Yeah.
Finkelstein seems to be a little bit more consistent in what he says. Like his narrative holds a bit more water.
Well, he just sees it as a long-term problem for the Jews. He just sees like how it's run and how it kind of needs to run for it to survive as basically this rolling PR problem, which it is.
He will tell you though, like for example in his book The Holocaust Industry, he will tell you that so much of this is to do with the Jewish lobby. Chomsky won't do that. Chomsky won't say that it's organized Jewry in America. He'll say that it is Christian evangelical Zionists. That's what he says. Finkelstein Finkelstein doesn't really entertain that idea. Which
this weird politically dejected, like mega minority in America is 100% forcing a country on the other side of the world to exist and to commit fucking war crimes. Right.
Okay. So New South Wales Police also said that when they found out that there was plans to light up the Opera House in the colours of white and blue, the Israeli flag, that there were concerns among state police. So this was before they even knew about the pro-Palestinian march that was organised in response to it. And, I mean, you don't need to be Nostradamus, do you, to know that? I mean, and these are coppers who are mainly stationed in Western Sydney, where you've got a very high Arabic and Muslim population. Yeah, obviously when they heard about this, they thought, "Oh, Jesus Christ, bit of overtime tonight."
Yeah, like, oh, Jesus Christ, the fucking ethnic minority we've allowed to, like, illegally bear arms and do fucking gangland executions on each other over the past fucking several years. Oh, yeah, that minority is now going to have an ethnic feud? Oh, God.
Right. So, I'm not sure how this got out, but it was an email by the police commissioner, Karen Webb. Email by her chief of staff, Christine McDonald, that was circulated to other officers, basically saying, watch out, we've got escalating tensions in and around Sydney, and, you've got to, kind of what Mike Burgess said last week, which was like, it's not an elevated terror threat, but it is an elevated threat of sporadic violence going on.
Yeah.
Mainly beatings and stuff, not necessarily bombings. And yeah, they're absolutely right to have thought that. And yeah, I mean, if that is the police's knee-jerk reaction to a policy like that, then I mean, come on, how can you tell me that multiculturalism is some kind of working experiment? By the way, they also have a Middle East crime squad in New South Wales. Why have they got that? Okay. That started when the labs started pouring in here in the 80s, and then essentially created gang rape. Gang rape did not exist in Australia until the labs came in.
No, it didn't. Right. That's an entirely new cultural import, like mincing lamb and mixing it with spices and then flattening it together on a metal pike and fucking roasting it. And gang rape.
Yeah. And gang rape, yes.
And the worst part is the hypocrisy.
Okay, so moving on to Iran's involvement in this conflict and how it affects Australia. Really right from the beginning, people were questioning the diplomatic ties with Iran. The reason being is because recently you had a number of sanctions that had expired. There was actually an expiry date on them, and therefore they were lifted. Well, guess what? Australia has reimposed all of them. So that includes sanctions and travel bans on 19 Iranian individuals and 57 entities, NGOs, businesses, things like that.
Etc., yeah.
Yeah. There was this pressure had been on Penny Wong right from the beginning. And she's saying that, yes, it's to do with the fact that they think Iran is collaborating with Hezbollah and Hamas to orchestrate attacks around Gaza. But it's also apparently to do with Iran pressing ahead with their plans to arm themselves with nuclear weapons. So they say that they're not adhering with their non-proliferation commitments. So, yeah. I would basically guess that I don't know if they put a time limit on these ones, but I just can't see these sanctions ever being permanently lifted, not like in the near future anyway, because Iran is just always going to be accused of doing this.
No, that's the Jews' biggest fear, that someone in their region could actually nuclear strike them before they fucking pulled the Samson option.
Well, look, no, the real thing is, I mean, nuclear weapons are, they're used as a deterrent, and they're used as a way of flexing. If you have nukes, you can't be touched. That is the number one reason why North Korea developed them while the Iraq War was going on. They were accused of being in the axis of evil, and they're like, okay, well, if we build a nuke, America's not going to come after us because, mutually assured destruction.
If they have nukes, they'll be able to get their money without begging the US for it.
Yeah. And who was the third country in the axis of evil? It was Iran. So, I'm perfectly willing to say that they are developing a nuclear weapons program, or that maybe they've even developed one. But can you blame them? Because the natural leaders in in the Middle East is Iran. That's the natural leader. In terms of the Arab world, it's Saudi Arabia because they're artificially propped up by the Americans.
Yep.
But, there's no question that it's Israel who is the overall...
Literally everything that Saudi Arabia has built will crumble into the desert fucking 10 years from now unless it is propped up by an ungodly amount of money.
If you were to allow the logos of the Middle East to come to fruition, and, you weren't propping up the Saudis like that, you weren't dumping all the aid on the Israelis and protecting their fake borders, Iran would emerge as the regional leader, plain and simple. And they know that they are the natural leaders. And one of the ways that they want to assert themselves is through arming themselves with nuclear weapons. That makes sense. That's realpolitik. That's geopolitics. And how can you blame them for engaging in that?
Okay, I imagine there's some fucking pill-pull way to do that, though. Let's check Twitter.
When I saw this story, Nosey, I thought you might want to show this one to Randbot when you're on his stream next, because this is to do with the numbers in the Australian Defence Force. What a surprise. Our numbers are dwindling. They are shrinking. Not only are they not meeting recruitment targets, but they're actually just going backwards. So, what we got here? So it says, uniformed personnel numbers falling at more than 3,400 under target in the last financial year. So the last annual report reveals that despite a bipartisan commitment to expand the ADF, the uniformed workforce contracted by 1,161 personnel in 2022 to 23 to 58,642.
Yeah.
Contracted by... Oh, sorry. That was, contracted by all of those. But anyway, the combined Army, Navy, and Air Force workforce was 5.5% smaller than the Defence's 62,000 target. So, they're well under the mark here. We're decreasing in personnel. We seem to want to make nuclear-powered submarines here in Adelaide, and you're not even going to get anyone to get on board.
I was going to say, look at the project life. Do we even have enough fucking dudes to crew it after they're done?
No. So I mean, the exact same problems that you're seeing in America are happening here, and most people who join the military, they never actually want to see active service. They just want to finish their apprenticeship or whatever it is they're doing.
Rand was actually talking about his kind of last stretch in the ADF. It was back during that conflict in Crimea during like 2011, 2012, and he was saying look, honestly, if they sent out the little the intel brief saying that we're gonna go fight Russians, he was not gonna show up the next day. He was just gonna go AWOL. And he was still relatively, nationalistic at the time. Well, civic nationalist. So yeah,
Look,
he had all the ideological backing to do it, but he was just like, we're a boutique army, and engaging this would be retarded. And now we've got genuine threats. More real ones. Yeah, I don't think your average fucking Joe looking at fucking this clown fucking circus of a country would be feeling so patriotic.
No, and I mean, why would you want to fight for the interests of a country that doesn't represent you? Because Australia is an economic zone that essentially represents no one. Everyone is just a consumer. They're an economic unit. There is no culture to actually look up to and therefore protect and fight for.
I'm not fighting for a Masonic strip mall.
Right. And that's one thing that, libertarians can never get their head around. You're not going to get anyone to die for you. You're not going to get anyone to die for individualism. They have to, if anyone's going to sacrifice themselves, it has to be for some kind of higher purpose, higher power, higher concept that can include the nation.
I could hand you a really cool contract where you get shit tons of money, but, you can't spend that money if you just straight up fucking die.
Okay. So, well, we do have a story on the submarines, actually. So, a bipartisan group of US senators have demanded that the Pentagon release details on how much extra money it will need to provide Australia with nuclear-powered submarines, while at the same time satisfying the US Navy's own expanding fleet requirements. Okay, so, the other day, Joe Biden did that live address during primetime TV hours in America, talking about the need to, I'm not sure if it was the debt ceiling again, but, basically saying Congress needs to free up more money to pay for the aid that they're giving Israel currently, but also what they're giving Ukraine. And we all know that both of those powers are propped up by the Americans and that they would go nowhere if it weren't for American aid. And that's absolutely true. So you do have the more, fiscally conservative senators in America who are saying, well, hold on a sec. How the fuck, if we're going to pay for what we're doing in Ukraine, what we're doing in Israel, what we're doing in all the other bloody military bases all around the world, how can we actually afford these bloody submarines, right? Because we all know that we're not going to build them in Australia, okay? This is America saying, how is it that we are either just going to give them what we have or actually build them for Australia and deliver them to them by sometime in the 2030s? It's just not going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see that if the Pentagon does release information on this, that perhaps they're going to say, well, look, nothing is set in stone. In other words, we probably won't end up funding it. I would not be surprised if that happened.
Yeah. I mean, okay, they release nuclear subs to us, then we have a fucking security fucking problem that even though we're a part of a security agreement, we've got a security problem because we're not exactly on the same board of technology when it comes to the US. Although, nuclear sub technology, I imagine, has stagnated in that country for some time. And say we build them, which is a fucking, a task that we literally do not have the fucking industries for. We'll have to build them from the ground up. And but I don't think that's good because they don't even have, they're not going to make the tertiary industries that are related to it. They'll probably just contract them out to another country. Yeah. Either way, we're fucked. Not getting them for ages. Or if we're getting them with so many fucking asterisks attached to them that we may as well not even get them in the first place.
Okay.
And all that's under the assumption that I want this country to have them.
So what about our own international expenditure? Well, we have just pledged $68 million to Fiji. Now, this, again, is to do with climate funding, because Fiji is a Pacific island nation. They are apparently the most vulnerable to the excesses of climate change because of flooding and severe storms. So we're always told that we need to pour money into Fiji, Tonga, etc., and while at the same time reducing our own carbon footprint. Now, on this occasion, there was basically, they said that, we do want Australian companies, particularly those in resources, to scale back their carbon emissions. But really what we want is for you to give us a bunch of money so that we can better protect ourselves against the elements.
Give us more money so we can buy more KFC and Spam.
That's not what has happened here. This $68 million has not been earmarked for any specific climate purposes whatsoever. In fact, a good chunk of it has gone into dealing with cybersecurity and training their police force, because China is trying to get a foothold in the Pacific Islands. They've been doing things like providing military weapons, police weapons, for their police and emergency services, and, basically playing the game of chess, just like any other global power wants to do. Australia is coming in on the side of America and trying to offset that. And how do you do that? With a whole bunch of money.
Big old bale of cash.
not only that, well, we're going to get to this when we discuss immigration, but that wasn't the only part of this package.
I'm going to give you several $100 million to stop whining.
Well, our government has promised to streamline visa services for Fiji nationals and intensify efforts to help it deal with escalating cybersecurity threats. So these are the foreign workers, the fruit pickers. They want to streamline their visas and get them over here basically as quickly as they can to work for.
I need more slaves.
We do.
I need more slaves for my plantation. I need these big buck Polynesian slaves.
Okay, so, well, back to ASIO again. Mike Burgess has confirmed that a Chinese national was removed from Australia after they were found to be spying. So... so this was like...
Man, I've got no experience with that. I've got no anecdotal evidence. Like, man, this is out of the blue. Wow. It's hard to believe this could ever happen.
I mean, the reason why they did this, though, is because this was a genuine case of where it was not only just a Chinese national, it was someone on the government payroll. It was their job to come over to collect information on Australia's intelligence services and otherwise, and then relay that information back to China. But as we always say, like, any Chinese national or anyone who is simply like Han Chinese is a potential Chinese spy, okay? Because you don't have to be paid. It doesn't have to be your job to do it. You just have to willingly hand over sensitive information to powers that could misuse it in another country.
Oh no, just before I fucked, just before I got fucked, because, you know, I was unfortunately involved, or like socially involved, you know, I had lunch with these fuckers a handful of times, and that makes me involved somehow. Thank you, fucking ASIO, for lumping me in with them. With Chinese spies, one of the liberal dissident professors I had who was born in China, Han Chinese, it was kind of like after the class and etc., and he was just talking with some of the students, and he's just like, I think there was something going on with China. There was some posturing. I think this is probably when the tariffs like first started rolling in. He was just like, look, you know, China's just a bunch of fucking gangsters. Like, he was like, would I ever spy for my country? Like, in my heart of hearts, I'd say no, but they could just turn around, send me a fucking email saying like, hey, you know, you're gonna give us X, Y, and Z from this institution, or your niece gets it, or your brother gets it, or your sister gets it, or your mom and dad get it. It's sad to say that, you know, like, even if they're not ideologically committed, they're still gonna spy.
Yeah. And by the way, so just to read what Mike Burgess told reporters, he said, the plot involved a visiting professor, a genuine academic who had also been recruited by Chinese intelligence. So there you go. He was a uni professor.
Yep. Damn, I may have knew him.
All right. Okay, now, oh yeah. Burgess also said that he has no reason to dispute the claims coming from the Trudeau government in Canada that India may have been responsible for an assassination attempt on a Sikh leader in Canada. And of course, the question has to arise, could the same thing happen here in Australia, considering we have a very high Indian diaspora from, well, all three major religious groups in India. Of course, the ones who really kick on the most are the Hindus versus the Sikhs, because there is this current big push for there to be an independent Sikh nation to separate from the rest of India. So,
I still remember one of the times a Sikh student straight up threatened another student with his dagger.
Oh yeah, that they have to carry around with them.
Yeah, it was like one of these weird things that they kind of fought to get it as a religious exemption, because a lot of the times they'll have like a piece of jewelry that has like a dagger pendant or something on it to like, you know, like do the religious loophole
or they
thing.
can carry a photo of one. Isn't that another thing?
There was some shit like that, but like no, this one just straight up had an iron dagger, like a full on fucking curved, sharp fucking iron dagger. And like semi on like I think like in because I believe it was part of the more extreme religious sect of Sikhism, but like if they unsheath the dagger completely, it must draw blood. So like what they do is they just like flash a bit of the blade to be like fuck off.
Right. Well, look, we also got to point out, like Mike Burgess didn't say that that is definitely what happened. You know, it's not saying that they definitely were involved.
I'd say they would. There were. There's so much.
I think they were too. I think they were.
But yeah, on the Indian side of things, they're looking at an insurrection. On the Sikh side of things, they're looking at like being a stateless people.
Yeah. But I mean, look, I guess this was more Burgess, just like when he was defending Israeli intelligence. In this case, he was just defending a Canadian intelligence and saying that, you know, they're not putting this out here as a way to like stoke tensions with India or anything like that. They have real credible evidence to say, yes, India has been financing and organizing assassination attempts in foreign countries. And I am just kind of waiting for it to happen over here, considering we've got so bloody many of them, and considering we've already seen street fights, like really nasty ones, break out between Sikhs and Hindus.
I saw like like there was like some Hindus like celebrating like the bill for like the creation of the Sikh state not being passed, and then the Sikhs just like churned around the corner with cricket bats and poles and started wailing on them. It's like, holy fucking Jesus. I've never seen shit move that fast.
Yeah. The shit on the street. Okay. What the hell have I got here? Oh, God. Let's skip that story in South Australia. It doesn't look very, very interesting.
No.
So look, a story that actually just came out, I read this today, was that the Australian government is going to be working hand in hand with Microsoft to build what they're calling a cyber shield. So that is to fend off global online threats. And yeah, they're going to
fucking Ireland us.
Well, yeah, look, this is $5 billion that we're handing over to Microsoft. We're contracting them to come up with, all of these cyber shields, as they put it, to protect Australian data and intelligence. That's a shitload of fucking money to give them. It's not like Microsoft need it anymore.
You know what I would trust national security in the hands of? Like the security of a nation. You know what I'd really trust in the hands of? A multinational corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even trust it in a fucking national corporation, to be honest. I'd rather just have it be a part of the fucking government.
You reckon the government should just do it all itself?
Well, you know, like if it's gonna be done and it's a part of our national security, it really there shouldn't be any part of the chain that exits, you know, like the government itself. You know, not that I would actually trust the Australian government. I think that it's competent enough or willing to actually do it itself, but like a serious government could and should.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair enough. This is where we need Kyber on, I think, to comment on that. I'm just more blown away by the sheer volume of that. $5 billion. $1 billion is $1,000 million. Okay, times that by 5. That's how much we are giving Microsoft, this fucking multinational corporation who's involved in all sorts of anti-competitive practices. And here they are, just securing a monopoly over this enormous government contract to pay for this cyber shield, as if we needed to prop them up anymore. Okay. Oh, so yeah, China, they're actually lifting the tariffs on Australian wine. So we know that this is part of the slow thaw in diplomatic relations between Australia and China. What was the last one? I can't remember, but China eased the tariffs on. Yeah, no,
Barley.
This is on live. No, lobster.
Lobster.
Oh no, sorry. Right. Lobsters are the last one. That's the last one. So
I'm pretty sure it was grain or some shit like that, like ag products.
Yeah, there were a few things, and then just kind of one by one they started dropping them.
Well, actually, no, it definitely was ag products, because the tariff on ag products from Australia was like the smallest one, because like in all honesty, China, like Japan, needs Australian ag products to maintain like decent food storage.
Yes. Once they take down the tariffs on the live lobster trade, that's the only one left. So, yeah, I mean, this wasn't, has not come as a big surprise. And so this is after the Albanese government announced that it would allow Chinese company Landbridge to continue its lease over the port of Darwin. So this is actually something that One Nation has been very vocal on, saying that it amounts to, a CCP takeover of government land, and yeah, kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Landbridge is owned by the government, just like any of those big Chinese corporations are. But Albo is also set to be jet setting off to Beijing very, very soon. So this was just sort of like a prelude to what's going on. And, with the new ambassador that we got last year, we're going back to business as usual, really, with the Chinese. Until there's another trade war or something that might break out again.
Yeah, until America tells us to go and kick him in the balls again, basically.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to climate and energy. So there was a story here in the ABC just talking about the general increases in electricity power prices for small businesses. As you can imagine, they have gone right up. In the case of one small business they profiled, which is a cafe in Adelaide, they found that the average spend per month prior to the increase in the recent increase in power prices was around $2,700, and that went to $4,000. That's close to doubling. So, yeah, if only in a few months your electricity prices, your cost, which is just one of your costs of doing business, has almost doubled, I don't think it's any surprise that we're seeing a lot of Australian business on its knees.
It's also like it's super fucking shitty too, because a lot of the small businesses over here, they're just service businesses. So like, yeah, serving you coffee, fucking serving you cakes, a small little fucking deli, or like little restaurant that's like a relic from the 80s, one of those little nook in the corner things where they haven't actually changed the art decor from like the 80s, so you know how old they are. Those things, they run on fuck all. Their margins are fucking terrible because they're serving base goods. So, like, the actual profit they make on those things is fucking atrocious. So, like, they didn't have much capital to play with, and now you're just gonna go and fuck them. It's not like fucking Big W or fucking Kmart or, some, like, multinational franchisee things, or a McDonald's, for example, would have a problem with this. They could probably soak it up. They can soak it up because they actually do exchange money over borders, which is something they got slapped in the wrist for back in the early 90s. But like, those can soak it up. So yeah, again, we're seeing like a large and substantial wealth transfer. It's not like we haven't had one of those recently.
No, not at all. But then on the other hand, the ABC goes and runs this other article trying to tell you that it's all good. Now, the reason for that is, two-pronged. Apparently, we just had a warmer winter. So it was warmer than it usually was. I don't know. If I'm just going anecdotally, I can't say I really noticed. I didn't think it was any more or less cold than usual. I didn't really notice any change.
I didn't fucking notice it getting hot at all. It was actually quite livable. I imagine that would actually, you know, decrease the amount of like air conditioning usage. It stayed around the low 20s. Oh, like, yeah, you know, it did actually dip quite a bit. Like, there were some days at like 8 and 9 and etc. But like, for the most of it, yeah, it stayed around like 18 through to 25. Like, that should mean that you don't use a lot of aircon.
Right. Okay, so look, they're saying that because of the warm winter, but also a boom in rooftop solar panels, that actually during the winter period led to a fall in the demand for electricity and wholesale electricity prices falling. Now, notice I said wholesale electricity prices here. That is not the price that, say, that cafe we were just talking about is paying, okay? You have to talk about, well, look, all right, do those wholesale prices eventually trickle down to the retailer? And the answer is no. You know, this might benefit big power companies and that, but small businesses are still paying top dollar for their electricity, for their power. So the ABC were trying to sort of spin this story in saying, well, look, people weren't turning on their heaters and everything that much because of a warm winter. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. Were a lot of people not turning on their heaters because they just didn't want to pay for it? What about that?
I didn't.
There's no mention of that in the article. They're just entirely saying that the increase in solar panels and a warmer winter meant that less people were using their heating.
I got into little spats with the woman over this actually during the early parts of the winter. I was just like, I would come to the house and she would like, just women not understanding, you know, having any degree of spatial reasoning, should have like the doors open and the heater cranked to like 1,000,000, and then like the flying open on the front. And it was like, yeah, okay, we're heating the entire fucking neighborhood at this point. If you're gonna do that, use one of the smaller unit ones in the actual rooms and not use the big fucking central one, and then close the doors off so it's an enclosed space. Like,
yeah. So, but it just because I read this whole article. And they did not mention that in there. These were given as the only two reasons for it. So yeah, if there was any relief here, it would have been very short. And like I said, it's not translating into lower prices for retailers. In fact, as we just went through with that example, it is going up, way up, like 30, 40%. Okay, now we've got some cost updates on the Snowy Hydro, which is the flagship kind of infrastructure project of Malcolm Turnbull in his effort to fight climate change. So the original budget for Snowy Hydro was $2 billion. You know what it is now? $12 billion. Wow.
Oh yeah.
That is a blowout times 6. That is huge.
Yeah, if you want to fucking understand like just the mechanics of why these projects go out, Practical Engineering has a video on it. He was talking about like a highway roundabout type deal, and also like fucking fire whoever fucking like quantity surveyed the original amount, because that's dumb. Hydroelectrics were never that cheap. The Hoover Dam, like read for inflation, is fucking astronomical, and you know the impetus there was like, oh, if we can government spend our way out of a fucking depression.
Yeah, well look, again, originally it was supposed to be providing power early next year, 2024. Now they're saying that it will not produce any power for at least another 4 years. So there you go, $10 billion over cost, and at least 4 years over time. So, not going very well.
Yep, we just need to get some slave laborers in. Remember that there are dead bodies buried in the Hoover Dam.
Right.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't laugh at that. I mean, a number of Australian men were killed on the Sydney Harbour Bridge as well, because, you know, you didn't have proper scaffolding and harnesses and stuff back then. Okay, so here in WA, we actually had our first youth detention death. So there had never been a detainee, as in like a juvenile, someone under the age of 18, who had died in juvenile detention in the state. Now, that has changed. This person did die as a result of injuries sustained in Unit 18, though. So the death did not occur at Banksia Hill. It occurred in Casuarina, but it occurred in that special unit for basically the worst of the worst juvenile offenders that the state has to offer. Now, was this, Nolza, you'll just have to remind me. This was the one where they said it was self-harm, but it's not actually self-harm?
No, COs are kind of wink, wink, nudge. I actually got this from a fucking CO. They're wink, wink, nudge, nudge into reporting gang beatings as like self-harm, or they did it to themselves in their cell or something like that. And that's because, especially right now, they don't want any fucking further criticism. They don't want fucking, you know, eyes on them right now. But in all likelihood, and I'm gonna say this in all likelihood because, you know, I'm getting it from a source, and I'm not going to disclose that source because that person, you know, for all the danger of their job, you know, still kind of enjoys it. He's kind of weird like that. This person's head was fucking bashed in because he pissed off other people in the unit, other little shits, the little ferals in the unit. He was found unconscious, basically found brain dead.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he had a chance, really, it seems.
Yeah, no.
And then, he died in hospital of his injuries, eventually.
Yeah, he got his fucking skull caved in his cell and left there.
Yeah, so it was a 16-year-old half-caste, I'm pretty sure, Cleveland Dodd. And, he died the other night in hospital. So now they had all these protests outside Casuarina by various Indigenous activist groups, I guess you'd call them. If you have a look, they all had the Aboriginal flag and everything and saying stop Indigenous deaths in custody.
The Aboriginal member for that area, the fucking 1/8 Aboriginal member for that area was lamenting like, oh my god, you voted no and this caused this to happen. Oh, if only we had voice to Parliament, this would never have happened. I was like, shut the fuck up. Just shut up.
No, definitely. Oh.
This kind of fucking shit happens in your own fucking communities. And it's way worse. At least then there was like some fucking EMT to kind of like, you know, look at this fucker as he was brain dead, and the corpse wasn't like, you know, left on the fucking street for several days to be eaten alive by flies. Yes, that does happen. And by the way, the Royal Flying Doctor Services has a fucking specialized fucking aircraft for dealing with decomposing cadavers because, like, a fucking Aboriginal corpse is left on the fucking street. You think I'm shitting you? I'm not.
No, absolutely not. I mean, look, I have to repeat this little tidbit, which is when they had the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, it actually found that Aboriginal people were more likely to die outside of prison. Okay? Now, granted, that was for adults, and what we're talking about here is a child. Well, this is the first one ever. Okay?
Yep.
And it didn't even occur in the juvenile facility. It occurred in the adult facility. All right? So, I have no doubt in my mind, that the same thing would be true, that you would be more likely to die as a youth outside of prison, outside of juvenile detention.
And the media's trying to play it like the CEOs went there and, like, I don't know, beat him with a fucking sock full of pennies or some shit until he died. It's just like, the CEOs don't want to fucking touch these ferals. They know that they're fucking dangerous. Like, they know that, like, literally, that part of their job, that part of their fucking contract, at any given point could mean that their head gets caved in too. They did it to them fucking selves.
Yeah, but what they're trying to say is that this kid took his own life due to the torture-like conditions he was subjected to. That's what Hilton Quayle will basically tell you. Children's court judge.
Heh. Oh no, those fuckers live to make other people suffer.
Okay, so I'm sure we remember the ACT legislation that it is effectively going to get rid of criminal penalties for drug possession. So it's much like a parking fine. Even for hard drugs like heroin, you simply just keep getting a fine every time, no criminal record. You'll only get a criminal record if you're found to be dealing it. So Michaelia Cash, who of course is a Liberal Party senator, she actually moved a private member's bill to overturn that legislation. Because remember, the ACT is a territory. The Commonwealth does have the power to overturn their legislation. Well, unfortunately, it was pretty much dead on arrival, and it was voted down. And yeah, I mean, she wouldn't have much hope, considering that the Greens would never ever vote for something like that. And you've got a lot of Green senators. They're kind of at the height of their power, or as high as it's been since about 2010. So yeah, she had no chance of that. And yeah, she basically referred to this as a parking ticket system, saying that, yeah, it's just like parking tickets. You just get a fine every single time. That's all it is. So she said that people would visit Canberra hoping to experience the ACT's party lifestyle, ending in addiction and even death. Huh. Is the ACT notorious for that? For its party lifestyle? I don't know.
Actually, yeah.
It is?
Dude, public servants are fucking degenerates. You should get Rand on to talk about this.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the Brittany Higgins thing and, how degenerate those nights out could be. So that's immediately what comes to my mind when I read that. But yeah, she said,
a lot of your like lower end functionary public servants do drugs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was an entire fucking, like, literally, this is a fucking universal thing apparently in the West. There was like in that movie, fucking, what was it called, like the Gentleman, or the Kingsman, the Kingsman in number 2. Like they're like, oh, anyone who's ever done drugs in their life, I'm gonna release this virus that like fucking turns you into a statue or some shit. And then like the president's like, yes, I'm all for this, get those degenerates off the fucking street, blah blah blah. And then like, some of his staff fucking freeze up and he's like, oh, I have to take drugs because this job is so stressful. It's like, no, you have to take drugs because you're a public servant and you're literally like you're just gay.
Yeah, well, look, she pointed out that things like just rolling your wheels over the white line when you're at the traffic lights will actually get you a bigger fine than being caught with meth, for example. So she said, in effect, they've created a parking fine scheme that applies to the possession of high-speed heroin, cocaine and other things, but the bitter reality is that parking offences in Canberra are actually now going to be treated more seriously than dangerous drugs. I would implore the federal government, please don't turn your back on the people of the ACT. Well, God. I'm sorry.
Hey man, you can smoke that fucking pipe right up on the street, and I'm gonna punish you less than the guy going 10 over the limit.
The gay Chief Minister of the ACT has turned his back on the people of the ACT. That's all it is. And, I mean, look, the only jurisdiction that voted yes, over 60%, I believe, in the recent referendum, the only jurisdiction, even Victoria, did not vote for it. So, yeah, it's not hard for me to imagine that this is a jurisdiction full of degenerates. And Rand lives there too.
Are you saying these things are related?
No, not at all. Okay, so let's go into housing here. So there's been a recent decision by the New South Wales government to convert part of a golf course in Sydney's inner city into a public park, which is about they say giving green space to local apartment dwellers. And they said it's not declaring war on golfers. So naturally, people who golf at this course don't like this happening. Now, look, I don't know if I really necessarily want to take the side of snobby inner city golfers, but the reason why this is happening is because they are trying to make compact living, is this new term that I'm hearing about, the further urbanization of Australia. They're trying to make compact living more appealing. So, you think about one of the ways that they try to do that in New York, is that they have Central Park. They have this huge, massive, big park right in the middle of New York, whereas the entirety of the rest of the city is just one big concrete jungle, okay? Where you've just got this park you can go to. Isn't that nice? So that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to just give them like a little bit of a local greenery and say, hey, look, see, you still are close to nature and all that kind of stuff. You may live in a little box, but who cares? You can take a walk out here and, walk on some grass. Now,
it also get raped after dark.
Huh?
It's like Central Park.
Yes, yeah.
During the day, have a nice stroll through the park. At night, get murdered, robbed, and raped. But first, you're gonna get dipped in acid.
Okay, now, just to show that this isn't me just putting my tinfoil hat on, the ABC have run articles on 2 recent studies that were done. One of them came from Victoria. So this came from Victoria's Independent Infrastructure Advisory Body. The modelling here found that the state of Victoria would be $43 billion better off by 2056 if it swaps its urban sprawl for a more compact design in existing suburbs. So in other words, more apartment blocks. Not just that, but knocking down the houses that are there, which is what they refer to as urban sprawl. So the body has also called for changes to planning rules and regulations to move towards the compact city design, which the modelling shows is also more environmentally friendly. I'm hitting a massive X on that one. How the fuck is that more environmentally friendly?
It's not. Concrete isn't.
For starters,
steel
it's clearly less green.
Bricks aren't.
Even though... What?
Literally, just the base materials aren't. So, fuck you.
Yeah, but when you cram people into a smaller area, you increase, obviously, population density, which increases carbon emissions. People get stuck in traffic jams and things like that. And, there's been plenty of sociological studies done that found that people who do live in compact areas have lower life expectancy, fewer friends, less life satisfaction, all those kind of things, health indicators, everything. It's worse. People who live in urban sprawl, who live in suburbs where people are spaced out and there's more nature around you, live longer, live better lives. So how on earth they could say that, look, this came from the Andrews government, okay? It came from a body under the rule of the Andrews government, trying to actually tell us that would be more environmentally friendly. What a load of shit.
Imagine there's some high-profile developers that are very interested in this project.
Right. Okay, now, so this other one, this comes from town planning research analysts, Archistar. I've never heard of them before. So some private group. And also property data group CoreLogic. I've heard of them.
Yep.
So this, again, was to do with going from urban sprawl to compact living, but specifically about building granny flats, right? So, if we can't convince people to subdivide, or if we can't convince them to just, have that house knocked down and have an apartment block built on top of it, well, how about you build a granny flat in your backyard and then rent that out to someone, is what they want here. So, it found more than 650,000 residential properties had the potential to build a granny flat and therefore ease up the housing shortage and bring down rent prices, etc.
I'm still not happy with granny flats, but if that's the compromise we need to actually, make okay, it's fine.
Look, I would definitely rather that than, just the outright urbanization. And it would be actually, it'd be a lot better if the granny flat were a real granny flat. I mean, remember, it got its name when,
for a reason.
Instead of putting your grandmother in a nursing home, you would actually take her into your home and she would have her own, private mini house in the backyard, But you're there just to keep an eye on her because, obviously by then she's in failing health. That would be good too. And I know in a lot of Eastern European countries they still do that. But that's obviously not what they're talking about here. They're just talking about renting them out to other renters who are out there. And it is, again, another example of when you don't deal with the primary problem, which is immigration, that you then have to go for secondary solutions. And this is one of them. Compact living, fucking granny flats. Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, there was one more story, and that was in Queensland. So the government intends to purchase an estimated 1,300 properties out of the stock of federal subsidised rental properties in a bid to boost state housing. So they have actually ruled out what a lot of people thought was going to happen, which was a tax on vacant properties. So no, they're not doing that. Victoria is. They have done that. So a lot of speculation that they were just going to copy that policy in Queensland. But no, instead what they're doing is they're just buying up these houses and then they're going to free them up for the market. Okay, in that case, I don't really have a big problem with that because, I don't see kind of negative externalities coming out of it. But, again, it's an example of the government just having to clutch at straws and get desperate for new ideas and what to do here because we're not controlling immigration, which is the primary cause of the housing crisis we're currently in.
No, it's your racism.
Yeah, right. So, bit of a warning, Victorian listeners, take note here because you're pretty much our biggest audience. Don't go around using swastikas or gestures. Okay, don't throw Romans. We have nothing against Romans here.
Don't ask if you can find your friend Kyle. He is at a very specific height.
Right. So look, these laws that we've talked a lot about, they are now on the books. The Victorian police have issued a statement saying yes, they will lay charges on anyone who breaks these laws. And remember that it can mean a fine in the thousands of dollars and even jail time. Okay, so while look, obviously we do not agree with these laws at all, and it's complete overkill. But I would say, also don't be a hero, don't be a martyr. Play your cards right, and unfortunately, you just gotta obey this one.
Look,
but we'll overturn it in time.
It literally, if you break this down to fucking your average person being like, look, a group of people made the government so fucking mad they had to ban symbols and gestures, that's just ridiculous to fucking anyone. They're looking for someone to make an example out of. You don't fucking need to do this. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's a dumb fucking law. Whatever.
Right. Okay, so now that we've got those stories out of the way, we will go. We will look at The Voice now and the continuing aftermath of it. So, yeah, as I said, there was this sort of self-imposed week of silence, like a week of mourning to mourn the loss of the chance of an Indigenous voice to Parliament.
That's weird. I still heard screaming down in the CBD.
Well, I mean, look, they went and released a statement that actually referred to the victory of the no vote as a shameful victory. So just to read one of the excerpts from this is a public letter that they put out, and it's anonymous, by the way. Now, of course, you can criticize Nolsey and I for being anonymous characters, but no one is going to confuse us for anyone else. Like, this is causing a lot of people to say, well, okay, was this Marcia Langdon? Was this Noel Pearson? Was it XYZ? And no one knows. So,
if you really feel the need to know who I am, all you need do is look inside the walls of your house. I am there.
Right. Well, yeah. So, in this case, it does kind of seem a little cowardly that they wouldn't put their names to it, especially considering so many of them have been out there as vocal advocates for it anyway. And also, what
I'd guess it's because it's not actually a bunch of Aboriginals. I'd actually wager the guess it's not a bunch of Aboriginals. I'd guess it's a bunch of fucking Jews.
Yes, yeah, or at least some of them, yeah. That's the other angle there as well. Because you'd have to ask, what social consequences would they actually face as a result of being identified?
They don't face social consequences or any consequences whatsoever for beating the fuck out of someone in the broad daylight in front of police on the streets.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a very good chance, like you say, these are non-Aborigines. They're either white people or fake political Aborigines, or they're Jews. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll read an excerpt here. It said that people who came to our country in only the last 235 years would reject the recognition of this continent's first peoples on our sacred land, which we have cared for and nurtured for more than 65,000 years, is so appalling and mean-spirited as to be utterly unbelievable a week following. Oh, some pretty...
You haven't been paying attention to the literature, have you?
So they also said that the Constitution of Australia belongs to those who the Founding Fathers intended it for. By that, they're saying white people. Look, this
unfortunately, it doesn't.
Well, look,
otherwise we would still have an explicit white policy.
The exclusion of Aboriginal people from the Constitution, and that is even the way that Tony Abbott and John Howard will word it, I must add. There's no one named in the Constitution as a group, as a racial group. It doesn't say this land is for white Australia or anything. It just doesn't mention any group whatsoever. So you can't exactly say that they are excluded. If they were excluded, then white people were also excluded because they're not named. It is clear no reform of the Constitution that includes our people will ever succeed. Well, yeah, I mean, Peter Dutton did say that the Australian people are kind of tired of the referendum cycle, and I think he did that as a way of walking back his previous commitment to a second referendum. And what a fucking brain fart that was. He must really regret that now, because even he did not see just how much the yes vote was going to go down in flames. The gap is still, they pretty much counted it all now. It's still 61% to 39%, which is whopping. That is massive. 5% is a landslide, remember, in an election. This was 11%.
Damn.
Okay. Now, some further good news, I guess. Another thing that occurred in the aftermath of the referendum defeat was that the Liberal National Party in Queensland withdrew their support from the treaty process. And, this was multiple treaties that they were preparing with multiple tribes, fucking Aboriginal corporations is a better way of wording it, I think, in Queensland. So this actually emboldened the Liberals enough, or the Liberal National Party, I should say. The Nationals kind of have the rule over there in Queensland. Emboldened them enough to backflip and therefore break the bipartisan support that the treaty process had held up until then. So, again, the thumping defeat of the yes vote has actually caused the Liberals to say, well, maybe we didn't go in hard enough here with the no vote, I'm thinking now that not only does Peter Dutton regret saying that he would hold a second referendum, he's quite possibly even regretting saying he would legislate the voice, because he tried to do this mealy-mouthed, moderate sort of fence-sitting thing. If you ask me, he did it all just so that he wouldn't, to try and avoid not being called racist. That's not going to work, Peter. And as he saw, it didn't fucking work. So you might as well just go all in and say, nah, we just don't support any of it. Don't support a legislative voice. We don't support a second referendum. We don't support the treaty process. And it took such a thumping loss for the Aboriginal lobby for the LNP finally to actually say, no, we're not supporting this. Now, further to that, Anastasia Palaszczuk is also abandoning the treaty process. Okay? It's dead now. It is dead in Queensland. I thought it was basically inevitable, right? Even I did not see this coming. So the reason why, not because the ALP doesn't support it anymore, but just like with the federal voice referendum, they don't see it succeeding without bipartisan support. So all it needed was the LNP to actually withdraw from it. And now they've got that, boom, it's dead. So the Palaszczuk government is saying that they are still committed to truth-telling hearings. Okay?
Oh, God, blood libel.
Yeah. So which is, the third pillar of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Now, as to the LNP's position on this, they're unsure. They don't know yet. All we know is right now they don't support the treaty process, so that's dead. Now, I got to say, though, that the truth-telling thing, even though it's obviously the most, ridiculously Orwellian name that it has, it's probably also the most benign out of the three pillars. We're not going to have a formal advisory board. We're not going to have treaties, which basically means reparations. If you do get the truth-telling, what you're essentially going to have is a bunch of quarter-caste Aborigines harping on about fake stories that happened to them. And how
the original settlers of Australia would get Aboriginal babies and throw them in the air and shoot them like clay pigeons? Do you know they hooked us up to masturbation machines?
Yeah, which is why I say it's got an Orwellian name, because these are not truth-telling at all. It's finger-wagging at white Australia and making shit up, just like they do with the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So,
gotta love it. Love to see it.
Now, look, some, I guess, of these Aboriginal activists who are trying to say a little bit more optimistic are saying that, okay, let's forget about it. Let's just go back to the other efforts of, for example, closing the gap, particularly in the Northern Territory where you've got the most problems. So, at the same time, though, they're saying that the referendum has resulted in trauma for a lot of Aboriginal people. This is much like in America, how they had Trump derangement syndrome. Oh. And, when I go and I click on this story here from the ABC are very quick to insert into this article support for Indigenous Australians, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Crisis Support Line, 13 Yarn, 139276. Or you can go to the Safety Commission's First Nations Resources. So, by including these things where they say, by the way, if you don't know what that is, this is like Lifeline, but for Aborigines. Holy shit, man. Wouldn't you hate to be the person on the other end of that call?
Fucking Christ.
But the very fact that the ABC puts that in the article is what's the implication there? They're trying to say, yeah, it's true. Like, the fact that we voted no has basically made a bunch of Aborigines suicidal as a result of that. The article goes on to just interview a bunch of Aboriginal activists who are saying that, that their communities are in a state of hurt and mourning and everything. And, you could just blame Albo for that. What the hell was he thinking? What I think he was thinking was that he would get bipartisan support, considering that even the hard right of the Liberal Party had at least supported constitutional recognition. He then got in bed with the radicals like Marcia Langdon and, yes, even Noel Pearson, refused to compromise on the model, and therefore lost the support of the Liberal and the National parties. That's what happened. It was just, he made a series of tactical errors, and it really backfired. And you should blame Albo for that, if you're going to blame anyone. Okay.
They're not.
Okay. So, wow. Our friend Mike Burgess just keeps coming back. The reason why is because, like I said, he was recently in Senate estimates, so they questioned him on a number of things.
The Spookmaster-in-Chief.
Right. So he slapped down speculation that the Voice referendum was influenced by disinformation spread by foreign governments. Well, for once, Mike Burgess, I think I do agree with you here. That's definitely true. Like, why on earth? You know, there's even, you can see this in the prep that I've written here. There was a report, I can't believe I didn't see this, but in September of this year, the Age newspaper speculated that Russia might have been behind certain social media accounts that were pushing for a no vote. And among those social media accounts, they are including the Aussie Cossack. Okay.
Why?
The Aussie Cossack only until recently became a Russian citizen. Okay? He was not even a Russian citizen until like 2 weeks ago, because he had been hiding out on the consulate and asking for refuge, essentially, because he pushed over that Ukrainian guy. Now, holy shit, why the fuck would Russia give a shit about promoting the no vote over here? Why would they care? So, yeah, it's amazing that they did ask him about this, but they did have to ask him if foreign entities like the Russian government were financing or running social media accounts pushing for a no vote that resulted in widespread disinformation and misinformation in the Australian electorate. Oh, man.
Why are we retarded?
Well, look, just to show that the coalition is still kind of retarded. Like, so, I mean, I was just saying that, you know, now would be a good time for them to actually go in hard against the kind of Aboriginal policies that they were moderate on, but they're still demanding that there be a royal commission into child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities. Now, of course, there is a massive problem there. There always has been. And let me tell you, it was definitely there before Europeans were here. But Peter Dutton and Jacinta Price in particular seem to think that it's now a better time than ever to push for a royal commission, because that is something that apparently has real teeth. It's a policy that gets boots on the ground and takes real action instead of, you know, an advisory board that simply makes representations. Now, that might seem logical on the surface, but when it comes to governments or authorities implementing recommendations of a royal commission, that is very, very rare. Usually, you spend millions and millions of dollars on them. It takes a lot of time, a lot of paperwork, and then they just say, okay, we recommend this, this, and this, and then no one actually implements it. And you've essentially just pissed up all that money. That's what happens time to time.
You are duly noted.
Yeah. The only, like, recent exception I can think of that was the Banking Royal Commission. That was the one pushed for by George Christensen. In that case, the government did actually implement new regulations based on what the Royal Commission recommended. But I just might add here, we've obviously had endless amounts of Royal Commissions into Indigenous issues. I mentioned before the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody. Now, what good did that do? I find, you know, the best thing about it was the fact that we found that Aborigines are actually safer in prison.
That's like outside. The only good takeaway from that was just like, like it turns out like being in handcuffs increased their life expectancy.
Right. I mean, that's absolutely true. But in terms of like policies that eventuated from that particular Royal Commission was nothing. It was fucking nothing. Okay, you want real action here? You got to take away the porn, the petrol, the drugs, the alcohol. That's what you got to do. You got to take away all the things that they don't have the agency to refrain from, and that's it. That's the only thing you can do. And you know what? There's still going to be a disproportionate amount of sexual abuse there, but you can't expect to bring them up to our level. And this is the problem with conservatives and the colorblindness, saying we all got to be treated equally, is that it just does not accord with reality, because these people are not equal. They are different, and they will behave differently, all right? And they will respond differently to the kind of environmental stimuli that they're exposed to. They will respond differently to white people. And so you got to get rid of that ridiculous colorblind perception. Okay, let's move on to immigration here. So, federal Labor is claiming a major foreign policy victory after the federal government passed legislation to deliver the Pacific Engagement Visa. So that opens the door to 3,000 people from the Pacific to settle permanently in Australia each year. Now, this also accords with what I was just saying before about Albo's visit to Fiji. Them streamlining visas in Fiji for Fijian workers to come to Australia.
Slaves.
To basically be slaves. Well, yeah, they're part of this Pacific Engagement Visa, right? So this is actually a new class of visa where you go through a very speedy process of becoming, cheap brown labour here in Australia.
I'm going to go through a speedy process of buck breaking my Polynesian slaves.
Now, look, the process behind this, though, was actually kind of interesting. So they were struggling to secure the numbers in the Senate to get this through. And eventually, Labor struck a deal with the Greens. And this is an exchange for the government reviewing a contentious mechanism that allows it to reject temporary visa applications for people with disabilities, which carry significant costs to the Australian taxpayer. We might remember there was that sub story about the family who had an Down syndrome son. And it was basically, they said, well, look, he's obviously going to be an economic drain on the Australian taxpayer. We can't afford to bring him in. And, unfortunately, when it comes to immigration restriction in any Western country now, the only way you can deter it is through economic cost. That's the only reason we might say, hey,
we are an economic zone.
Yeah, or, like if there's fear of people going on the dole, that's why we don't generally allow old people in, because you're likely to get on the pension. So,
although it turns out that everyone just goes on the fucking dole when they get over here anyway, so...
Yeah, well, that's what the Kiwis would do, apparently. So, the government is now going to be reviewing. So this is all we've been told. They're just reviewing this mechanism to, reject people on the basis of disability. Now, considering that the Greens have now pledged to support this bill for these 3,000 Pacific Engagement visas, what's betting that behind closed doors they've essentially agreed to scrap it? And now all of a sudden, we're going to see all of these families with parents of disabled children flooding in. Just flooding in. Thanks to the Greens here, holding the Labor government's feet to the fire.
Goddamn. Or at least, maybe the next couple weekends I'm going to go down to the Polynesian slave market, considering that price is going to go down quite a bit.
Right. Okay, so Martin Parkinson, who is a former top public servant in Canberra, has come out and made comments about Australia's regional migration program. He said that it's failing abysmally, and that migrants who come in on some form of regional visa or who originally reside in a regional area in Australia very quickly shunning those areas and moving to the city. And by the way, most of those visas actually say that Perth is a regional area. And by Perth, I mean all of Perth, everywhere. The inner city, everywhere, is considered to be a regional area. So, yeah, I mean, that factoid alone should make you think that this program is failing. Now, the other thing is, though, that, this is such a fucking... I don't know if this guy is a conservative, but this is the classic conservative take on immigration, that it would be fine if we just got enough people out into the bush. No, it wouldn't. Now, on the one hand, he says, look, we've got to make things more appealing for them by increasing public services and infrastructure in regional areas. I'm all for that. I want to see that happen, but that's because I want to see people in the bush treated better. He's saying that it needs to be done so that we attract more migrants there. And, it just goes to show that eventually there is nowhere for you to run. You can go from the inner city to the suburbs to the outer suburbs to the bush, but eventually you're not going to escape the diversity. You're not going to get away from all these other people. And that's why, it pains me to think that increased funding for the bush can mean that people who live out there, and in some cases, yes, have engaged in white flight, are just going to have to deal with that problem all over again.
Yeah, they're just going to dump them all here, and then you're going to hope that you're fucking north of Joondalup or south of Spearwood.
But, this is what also makes me just think, stand your ground and fight, obviously, you're watching your community be destroyed all around you. But the only thing you can do at this point is stand your ground and actually fight. Okay, because if you move out of that area, you yourself have actually contributed to less white people being there. You're conceding territory, you're conceding ground. And yeah, I don't want to do that. Retiring is a different story, going for that quiet life that you want at the end of your life. But
yeah,
right now in your adult working life, you should stand your ground, in my view. Okay. Well, one last thing on what was happening in the Pacific there. Pacific leaders were actually asking for visa-free travel within Australia and the Pacific.
Oh, fuck.
So essentially, yeah. So kind of like doing what they do in the European Union.
Schengen.
Well, thankfully, Albo said, no, we're not doing that. We'll streamline visas for you, and we'll even create a new class of visa for your slaves. But visa-free travel, no, we're not quite going to that level yet. Okay. So, let's go into industrial relations. So we had a bit of a win for nurses and midwives in Tasmania. The state government said that their pay rise will go up about 15% over 3 years. Wow, that's pretty damn good. Remember, aged care workers actually got an instant 15% rise, but still 15% over 3 years is pretty good, especially considering other people have been struggling to even get 4% for it. And that goes for public servants and those in the private sector as well, because everyone is not seeing wages go up. Certainly not seeing them go up in line with the CPI. So this might be sort of some immediate relief, but they are saying that the nature of the wages and the conditions of midwives and nurses in Tasmania has been so bad for so long that it's still not really kind of a long-term solution to it, even though it does cover that 3-year period.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're slightly better than the ones in WA, but they're a smaller population dealing with a larger overall caseload. Like, literally, there has to be way more incentive than this.
Yes. Yeah, and something else they said that is like, while they're, fairly happy with the pay increases, there's nothing here about the conditions either, like the safety of the workers and, kind of the stress that staff are under, etc. There's nothing in that respect. Now, the pay rise, would have some indirect effect, I guess, because it would at least encourage worker retention. And, the more and more staff that leave, the harder and harder it is for the staff who stay, because they're overworked.
Yep.
So
they have to take on more beds.
Yeah, but that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they're just hoping the pay increase is going to bring more people in. Spoiler alert, it fucking won't.
Oh, God. Oh, so, man, I don't know if you knew this, but a week ago, on Wednesday, it was World Menopause Day, right? And so we had this, this is another ABC article where they ran an interview with some bloody academic, and they were talking about the effects of menopause on female workers in Australia. And apparently it costs around $5 billion annually. So that's the effect of menopause on those workers, on Australian business and productivity.
Can we just let Granny retire?
Yeah, what you see, when they talk here, like, what is wrong with the system, the current system, yeah, they are saying that essentially we're not being accommodating enough to get those women who are, like, first experiencing menopause to continue to work. Like, no, let them have the fucking time off, for God's sake. What a ridiculous thing to say. But yeah, I mean, it's just another one of these ways of where, like, the left, they're supposed to be the fighting for workers and their conditions and their wages, but they're actually just working to further increase the labour pool.
Quiet part out loud. Like, really what you're about is just fucking raping our society into the fucking ground and band-aiding fucking, like, problems that are so deeply rooted that you ideologically can't even fucking conceive of them.
Well, I mean, this is how you make the left anti-worker. Is you just say, oh, well, it would be sexist if you didn't support these policies. Oh, well, okay, I'm right on board. Fuck those men and their ever shrinking paychecks. We need to get more women, and in this case, more menopausal women, into work. What a joke.
Why aren't they retiring? That's a good question.
I know.
The next question is,
you'd think that would be
why are they fucking there? And the question after that is, why are there women in the fucking workforce?
Okay, so we've got this closing loopholes bill. So this is part of, like, what is fairly wide-ranging IR legislation that Tony Burke, the IR minister, is passing, or introducing, I should say. None of it's passed yet. So we're naturally getting a lot of submissions from various lobby groups. I think we went through a couple last week. So we've got another one here. This is from the Council of Small Business Organisations. I hadn't heard of that one. Obviously, some small business mob. So they're saying that they're significantly disappointed with the changes, and that it runs roughshod over well-understood definition of casuals and independent contractors, and give greater license for union representatives to enter the workplace. Okay. But the thing is, though, that well-understood definition of an independent contractor is that, businesses always regard you as an independent contractor just so they don't have to give you statutory rights. Statutory employee rights, like Uber drivers. They don't get them, for example. The rise of the gig economy is making these autonomous entrepreneurs.
You're your own business, and that just means we get to fuck you harder.
what we well understand is how businesses use these, yes, and that Labor is correctly calling them loopholes, as a way of not having to pay for employee statutory rights. Plain and simple. That is actually what is well understood. So,
we're not going to grab you by the hips when we fuck you. We're going to grab you by the ankles.
So the bill, it has been introduced into Parliament for debate now. Part of the Closing Loopholes bill is going to allow parents to access 6 months of paid parental leave by 2026. If it passes, 2 extra weeks of paid leave will be added each year from July 2024, increasing the length of the scheme by 6 weeks to 26 weeks by mid-2026. Okay, so they're pretty damn big changes, actually. My quick view on paid parental leave is as follows. I want you to give shitloads of leave to mothers, and I want you to give none to fathers. That's what I support in a nutshell, okay? When there's a newborn baby, I don't know, maybe give dad a week off or something, so he can celebrate the life.
About a week, until it gets boring.
Yeah, maybe give him a week, and to kind of adjust to that new life. Because a friend of mine, congratulations to him if he's listening, became a father recently, but it's he's telling me it's very, very hard for him.
Would I know him?
Yeah, you know him. Yeah, and I'm sure. Yeah, he does occasionally listen to the show. So yeah, congrats, man. But He's absolutely delighted that he's a dad now, but I can tell it's taking a toll on him. And yeah, he took a week off as well, and that's cool.
I'm hoping my kids end up like me, because apparently I was a very, very fucking quiet child, to the point where they thought that I was mentally retarded or something.
Be so harsh on yourself, Nosy.
That has happened a lot in my life. Is he just very recluse and quiet, or is he actually mentally retarded? Both.
Okay, look, let's remember that what some people were sort of surprised Tony Abbott did when he was Prime Minister. He actually quite generously increased maternity leave, not paid parental leave, but maternity leave for mothers. And some of the more astute commentators said that this sort of tapped into his DLP roots, his kind of Catholic social teaching style stuff. In other words, more economically left-wing style. But it's not just that. It's also, I think, Tony Abbott wanted to see less women in work. And that's what it was about. And libertarians are correct when they say that, maternity leave is essentially a tax on business, and therefore it disincentivizes them to hire women. And that's absolutely true. So that's why I say be very, very generous with maternity leave, but just give dad 1 week. Okay, that's it. That's all he needs. He should then get back to work so that he can run the household where mum is looking after the child primarily. That's the way it should work.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay. Last thing here was laws to reduce financial disincentives for age pensioners. So, this bill, this is separate from the Closing Loopholes bill. That'll take the pension work bonus from $4,000 from the 1st of January next year, taking the new maximum balance to $11,800 in paid work before the age pension begins to fall. So in other words, you'll be able to earn more money as a worker before they actually start deducting that from your age pension.
We're reaching levels of capitalism which we are deciding to exploit the elderly.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I don't know. I'm like, this is one where I'm a bit iffy, because I think a lot of the time why, old age pensioners and that can be depressed is because they're just not doing anything. You know, they're just sitting in their room all day in the nursing home or whatever it is. They're just not doing anything.
It's might like be good if someone expectancy of a dude fucking like goes into the shitter as soon as he retires.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, if you want to keep working. You know, not if you're about to fucking keel over, of course. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely say
it should be your fucking decision to do that. It should be under your own animus.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, but look, here again, we're just talking about carrot and stick approaches. But I don't know. This is where I'm different to, say, mothers, especially new mothers in the workforce. I'm just like, I don't know. A lot of these guys, especially these old men, maybe they retired when they were like 67 or something. They'd probably be better off working.
Why is Baby not with you? Why are you not with Baby? Where is my wife?
I'm not saying like on a construction site or something, obviously.
Oh,
it should be a non-labor intensive job, obviously, at that age. But yeah.
Yeah, no, like oh, man.
Okay. So let's just turn a bit to state politics. So the Tasmanian government, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP in Tasmania, has said that the Premier, Jeremy Rockliff, did not breach the criminal code by issuing an ultimatum to Elise Archer, who of course was the Attorney General, who recently stepped down and is quitting Parliament. So this stemmed from a complaint that Elise Archer made to the DPP last week on Tuesday, saying that Jeremy Rockliff had breached Section 70 of the Criminal Code, which states that it is a crime to seek to influence an MP in their duty or by inducing them to be absent from Parliament by fraud or by threats or intimidation of any kind. So she essentially said that that ultimatum that he gave for her to, retire was a form of harassment and threat. Well, it was actually only the next day that the DPP came out and said that they had fully considered the matter and does not disclose an offence by the Premier. So, no, she's been shot down straight away on that one. Kind of a shame. I'm no fan of Jeremy Rockliff. So, yeah, she said she's not, as a result of that, she's not going to lay a complaint with Tasmanian police.
No. So you weren't serious?
Well, she was going by whatever the DPP was going to say. And considering they only took one day to rebuke her, well, there's no point.
Yeah.
Okay, and just quickly, there was an alternative proposal made for the AFL statement. I've never seen such a controversial, did I just say statement? Stadium. The AFL stadium that is sort of coinciding with the new Tasmanian team. Do we have a name for them yet? Because it is next year, isn't it? Like
the Tasmanian Webfoots?
They are supposed to debut, aren't they, next year? And
wait.
Season.
I've got one that's relevant to Tasmania's culture. The Tasmanian Fiddlers. Cat and Fiddle Arcade. Rand has just bashed that into my fucking skull. Like, Jesus. Hey, team, look at this piece of white fucking culture. There's a fucking mechanical cat with a fiddle sculpture at this mall.
Alright, well, look, there was an alternative proposal. That part of it was put forward by Paul Lennon, who is a former Labor Premier of Tasmania. And this was to have the stadium out on the waterfront. And what was it? Yeah, alternative plans that would see the stadium built on a further reclaimed land in the River Derwent. Apologise if I'm spelling that
Derwent
correctly. Partly using funding from the private sector, so it would take the pressure off the public purse, in a way.
Like always.
So that comes the same week the government plans to bring on a vote in Parliament to have its preferred location 200 meters away at Macquarie Point. So, yeah, I mean, I saw like a 3D modeling of what this one would have looked like, and it looks better, in my opinion, because it's really kind of taking advantage of the nice waterfront that they have out there in Hobart. But yeah, looks like it's not to be. All right. So we've sort of got post-mortem results here of the state, the New South Wales state election, where, of course, Dominic Perrottet was turfed out of power. They're finding that one of the most damaging things to the Liberal Party was Scott Morrison. All right. So it was a few things. One was there was just sort of the it's time factor, and Scott Morrison was the last Prime Minister of 9 years of the Liberal Party. It was also the revelations that he appointed himself to several ministerial portfolios in secret. But what they saw as specifically relating to New South Wales was his intervention to secure the pre-selection of the moderate faction, or the I think they call them the centre-right, is what they say. So, God, I can't remember the names off the top of my head. Oh, Alex Hawke. Alex Hawke is one example of it. So yeah, basically they said all of this was Scott Morrison's fault. The tinkering, the multiple portfolios, people just being sick of a Liberal Party, no matter who it's led by. So they're kind of saying if there was a different leader, then maybe they would have had a chance. But they also said that Gladys Berejiklian's timing, that is when she resigned from the post of Premier, was way too late in the game. Because she was popular, remember, despite the fact, she has all the ICAC hearings and she had very strict COVID lockdown restrictions that compared with Victoria's. She still actually polled pretty well. And they're saying that Dominic Perrottet basically didn't have enough time to build the same kind of reputation, positive reputation that Gladys did have. Okay, so to the Queensland LNP.
Gladys had a positive reputation?
I know it's hard to kind of believe now, but yes, for the majority of her tenure as Premier, she was actually, particularly in her personal satisfaction rating, was actually pretty high.
Wow.
I know, kind of hard to believe now, but it's true. Okay, so Queensland LNP. Their leader, David Crisafulli, is not weighing in yet, is not definitively saying whether or not he's going to preference the Greens over Labor. Now, he did essentially say that if he were to do this, that it would be a purely tactical, pragmatic measure to take, because, remember, this was actually somewhat done in the federal election. Remember, the Greens picked up 2 inner-city seats in Queensland, and they were both at the expense of Labor. So who's to say they can't do the same thing in Queensland? Now, this apparently is it's dividing people in the Liberal Party. Because on the one hand, yeah, they obviously see that pragmatic, tactical side that I just mentioned. But at the same time, they have an ideological dilemma when it comes to, say, preferencing a party that they are even more ideologically opposed to, the Australian Greens. Further to that, it could backfire, and you could end up with a future Labor-Greens alliance or coalition, as they do have in the ACT, and which they have had in Tasmania as well. That could be a very real thing, especially as Brisbane continues to kind of hipsterize itself. So, yeah, be careful what you wish for. That said, this would be 12 years of Labor by the time we get to the Queensland election, which is a few months away.
12 years gay dungeon.
Yeah, I think they're going to be turfed out, and like, it's surprising, but Palaszczuk seems to actually want to take them in. She wants to go for a 4th term, and I think she will. Very rare for Labour leaders to want to do that at the state level, but yeah, I think she will, because it's kind of too late now. Like I said before with Perrottet, he didn't have enough time to build a reputation. It's too late now for...
Also, he got dogpiled right at the beginning. It's like, oh god, you're a Christian extremist. Oh god, and that turned out to be completely not fucking true. It'd be a lot cooler if he was.
Well, man, he's the one who took the New South Wales flag off the Harbour Bridge, for God's sake, and put the Aboriginal one there. You know, and said, oh, because it was going to cost us $25 million otherwise. So yeah, I mean, that was just complete crap.
Yeah, it's not God and country. It's barely God, maybe even not God at all, and brown people.
Yep. Okay, just some quick stories here. Real quickly, we've mentioned this guy a few times. He's a former member of the WA Nationals. His name is James Hayward. He's 54 years old, and he was found guilty a few months ago of sexually abusing a young girl who was aged 6 or 7 at the time. Now, we don't know the exact name because, being a minor, not all her details are publicly available, and that's obviously absolutely fair enough. So yeah, she was 6 or 7 at the time, was apparently given directions on how to get pornography, look up porn and stuff. And how he was sprung on this was the girl's parents caught her in the act of doing it. And there's some other gross details here if you want to look it up. Anyway, this guy has always maintained his innocence, but he was eventually found guilty. He was kicked out of the National Party, and he also became only the 2nd MP in WA's history to be expelled from the Parliament due to criminal activity. So, yeah, Vernon Helmate, I've got no one. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
No,
I can read out the main thing here.
Meat grinder.
He's been sentenced to almost 3 years in jail, meaning he's got to do at least a year before he can be let out on parole. And good luck, man.
If someone sees him in public, I'm not advising you do anything. I'm just advising that you defend yourself. Maybe in your presence, maybe you're a minor, maybe you're an fuck, now I'm just having an aneurysm because I'm so angry. Maybe you're like an unchaperoned minor, and you're in a self-defense situation. You may not be proud of what you have to do, but you should be proud that you did defend yourself.
Okay, and as always, disclaimers: we're not advocating any kind of vigilantism or violence.
No, absolutely, yeah. We're advocating that you stay within your rights and stay within the law.
Yes, of course. Okay, so quick story for the Victorian ALP here. The new Premier has slammed sexist and sexualized imagery that was published in the Herald Sun recently. So this was a political cartoon that depicted a naked Jacinta Allan walking the catwalk, and the caption says, "From the Commonwealth Games cancellation collection, the Premier's new clothes." So, this is all to do with the fact that she is the Member of Parliament most responsible, unless what do you say, Daniel Andrews as well, but she was the Transport and Infrastructure Minister at the time, and we've already gone through a few stories here where the more and more information is revealed, the more and more we knew that Jacinta Allan knew that the Commonwealth Games was blowing seriously out of budget and may not have even been feasible, and at the same time kept telling Parliament that everything was going exactly according to plan. She was lying, in other words. We know she was lying. And now she's just getting all upset here because they did this this cartoon, which is that's all it's doing. It's just clearly mocking.
If you're getting upset about a cartoon drawing of yourself, you've literally fucking lost Twitter. Like, the internet is meant for harassing people, and I guess the boomers are doing it in print media now.
And I mean, look, if there's one thing to like about democracy, however we want to define that or debate how much of it we actually have, you're supposed to be able to criticize your leaders, and that includes through artwork and satire like this. So, yeah, I have no problem with it. All right. So, Nolsey, have you heard about these new gun laws that they want to...
Oh, yeah.
That they are introducing, I should say. And that will pass as well, because we have a rubber stamp parliament here in WA. So, we are going to be the first jurisdiction in the country to limit the number of guns someone can own under new firearm laws. So, this is the Firearm Act review. It would see recreational shooters limited to owning only 5 guns, and farmers restricted to owning only 10 guns. Competitive shooters will also be limited to 10 firearms, but can apply to own more if they are competing at a national or international level. So,
the fucking levels of cope about this law is fucking horrendous. Like, oh, allow rural property owners to all use the same gun. It's just like, have you ever actually had to deal with pests? You send like your fucking, like, you're a rural person, you send like your 3 sons out there with a shotgun each. It's not just like one dude with a shotgun.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like, these kind of reforms, I think they really started getting going after, that shootout that happened where police were killed in Queensland a few months back. Yeah. Nothing like anywhere near that description has happened here in Australia. There was that guy, do you remember they found, like, he had like this secret compartment
underground fucking yeah, with the hydraulic lift and everything, and an underground shooting range of all things.
Yeah, and he just had this huge fucking stash of guns underneath. So I guess that there was stuff like that. But I mean, this guy, it was not like he was out there killing people or anything. He had a very elaborate system and a shitload of guns and ammo, but he was completely peaceful. He wasn't using it for anything. So I mean, there have been little things like that. And yeah, I mean, so just when you thought it couldn't get any worse in terms of our highly regulated gun regime here in Australia, the WA government is going that far. Also, I should say that the disposal of those guns, if you exceed the limit, can be done through surrendering the guns under an amnesty, selling them through a licensed WA dealer, or the government is going to set up a state-funded buyback scheme. We might remember the buyback scheme. If you do any of these, you are gay. John Howard did. Yeah. I mean, look, if you have to do it, at least sell it. Don't do the buyback thing. See if you can sell it. Get a good price for it, because I'm sure they'll rip you off. The government will rip you off, that is. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to advocate anyone to break the law at the same time. These laws are bullshit, though. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I'm not saying commit a crime or anything, but like, I will probably agree with the selling thing, but like any of the other ones, like, Jesus fucking Christ, you are a gay person if you do that. You are like literally the fucking you're that liberal that shit lib who went and bought like an AR platform and then accidentally committed a federal crime by sawing through the barrel.
It's funny when they do stuff like that. But yeah, look, considering we've done this, and considering people still do talk about that Queensland shooting, I hate to say it, but yeah, look out. Other jurisdictions could well be following suit. Okay. So, a few stories to see us out here. Peter Grester, we might remember him as the guy who was taken hostage, essentially, in Egypt. This was back when you had the Arab Spring going on.
Yeah.
And he spent almost 400 days imprisoned. And, it was pretty obvious that he was imprisoned simply because he was a journalist. He was reporting on what was going on there. And was it, I think some Islamic group anyway. It was the fall of Mubarak, when Mubarak came down in Egypt. I think it was the Muslim Brotherhood were the ones who captured him. But anyway, he said that the Media Freedom Act should include... he wants to create a Media Freedom Act that would include compelling the federal parliament to consider media freedom whenever passing new legislation. Good luck with that, Peter. You're not going to get it. So he said this at a National Press Club event, and he was saying that he was fearing the encroachment of government on free press, free media, including social media. And he said that we essentially need a Bill of Rights specifically about media freedom in Australia. Well, Peter, I completely agree with you, but guess what we're actually going to get instead? We're going to get this fucking misinformation bill, or disinformation bill, this Ministry of Truth shite. That's what we're going to get. We're not going to get a Media Freedom Act, mate. Okay. A private member's bill has been introduced into the Senate. Again, this is something that I would wholeheartedly support, and that means it's going to go nowhere. So this was introduced by Alex Antic, who of course is the far-right Liberal senator from Adelaide. This would be essentially banning gender transition surgery for anyone aged under 18. So it would make one exception for people who have genuine gender medical issues. Now, what that essentially means is, what do you call them? Intersex people. Sometimes, it's actually a biological thing,
You can be that quibble it's incredibly rare, but you can be that fucked up. It is very rare.
Yeah, and I mean, you can kind of see why they do it in these cases, because there is a biological basis to it. You can physically see that these people are kind of, trapped between two genders, maybe you could say. And those people I genuinely feel sorry for. That must be a horrible thing to live with. But anyway, they would be excluded from this. But anyone under 18 would not be permitted to take puberty blockers or to go through any form of surgery to, supposedly change gender.
But where am I going to get the money? Where am I going to get the money for mutilating kids? I need this money. I need it.
So, what he cited here, this is what got my eye here, is that there was a 2023 Freedom of Information request that showed the number of under 18s being prescribed puberty blockers has skyrocketed in just 5 years.
Shit, so the parents got the message.
Went from just 5 people, in 2014 to 624 by 2019. So that was only 5 years. The same FOI request showed that as of 2021, there were 2,067 young people attending public gender clinics, and that is almost 10 times the number in 2014, where there were just 211. And if I could throw one of my own stats in that I've kind of memorized from a previous show, specifically in Queensland, they had an over 1,000% increase, yes, 1,000%, in the amount of people with rapid onset gender dysphoria. In other words, they just suddenly became transgender, as if someone had put a crazy idea into their head. Yeah, because they're teaching this shit in schools on very impressionable people that are called children. And then they say, oh yeah, maybe I am a boy, maybe I am a girl. This shit. It's blatant child abuse. It's blatant child grooming. And unfortunately, that is why Alex Antic's bill is absolutely going to fail.
Yep. If it wasn't for the need to sacrifice money in some instances to push, social discohesion and society destroying, this is one of the instances where they can make money while doing it.
Yes. Right. Okay, so on the NDIS, the regulator, the NDIS regulator, has commissioned an independent inquiry after that ABC investigation. So they are actually doing something about it. So they announced the appointment of an eminent former judge, but they haven't given the name yet, to conduct an independent review. That review will examine the practices of the companies that were, pointed out here in that ABC report. That includes the severe behavior program, which used a therapy that was imported from the US and operated for at least 3 years. So that was how they were, forcibly restraining autistic kids, for example. So they are investigating that stuff. Now, the NDIS itself is currently going through a shake-up, and it's estimated that around 27,000 people, specifically with mental health disabilities, are going to be moved away from the NDIS and onto other forms of government support. I don't know if that's going to include autism, but I know they said that something like 1/3 of the clientele in the NDIS has autism as like one of the reasons why they get support. And that is basically the primary reason why they keep blowing the budget year in, year out with the NDIS. It is ballooning. So now, of course, people are getting a bit worried. They're like, well, hold on. Are you just going to, turn these people over to psychiatry or something and then just do nothing but drug them up instead of giving them support workers and stuff? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that eventuates.
Put them in the autism squisher.
Yeah. Quickly on education, there is a casual teacher shortage in New South Wales. No shit. That means around 10,000 lessons are happening without adequate educational support. So that was a finding of a survey of 2,100 schools conducted by the New South Wales Department of Education. It found a 42% shortfall in the number of casual teachers is driving the problem, and it warns that almost every public school surveyed is affected. Yeah, it would. Every single one. So yeah. Not only do we have enough full-time teachers, we don't have enough casual teachers either. That, I guess are just effectively what Americans call substitute teachers.
Also, by the way, they literally just fucking fast-passed and deputized a whole bunch of teaching students. Just remember that as well. That's how fucked the situation is.
Yeah. Okay, and lastly, Bill Hayden is dead. You sad, Nosey?
No.
No. So, if you don't know, he was the former leader of the Labor Party in the early 80s. He was treasurer in the Whitlam government. He died at the age of 90, and he was famously rolled by Bob Hawke for the leadership, which, of course, Bob Hawke got, and then he went on to be Prime Minister in 1983. So that has caused some people to refer to him as the greatest Prime Minister Australia never had. They also say that about Kim Beazley, though. But yeah, he was said to just be like this Labour titan who, just missed out by the skin of his teeth. Yeah, I'm pretty indifferent. I don't care one way or the other, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, guys. Well, we will leave it there. Thank you for joining us on that 195th episode. Check us out at theracer.biz, and we'll see you next week.